Sagittarius, take a very private moment for yourself right now. Not to rush to understand anything, but simply to listen. Because what is present around you isn't loud. It isn't dramatic. Yet it carries the weight of a real turning point. There are moments in life when no warning bell rings, no clear sign appears. Only a vague but persistent feeling, as if the air around you suddenly grows heavier, deeper, and every breath carries a question that hasn't been named yet. You may have felt this in recent days, a gentle pull that doesn't go away, a thought that returns again and again when night falls. A sense that if you keep moving on the same old momentum, something truly important will be left behind. Not because you're weak, and not because you're wrong, but because life, at this exact moment, is inviting you to pause at a crossroads that not everyone gets to see. Sagittarius is used to motion. You are used to moving forward, searching for new horizons, trusting that everything will eventually fall into place. But there are moments when the universe doesn't need you to move faster. It needs you to choose the right direction. The urgency here isn't pressure, it's awareness. This window of opportunity doesn't knock loudly. It opens quietly, and it closes the same way. You may think you need more time, more information, more certainty. But deep inside, there is a very honest part of you that already knows. It knows that if you keep hesitating, you won't just miss an opportunity outside of you, you'll lose a braver version of yourself. The version willing to step beyond the comfort zone, not out of recklessness, but out of respect for the life moving through you. Think back to the times you hesitated before, the crossroads you stood at, then turned away from, afraid of disappointing others, afraid change would come too fast, afraid you weren't good enough, not ready enough. And as time passed, you realized the regret didn't come from failure, but from never trying. This time feels similar, but deeper, because you are no longer who you used to be. You've lived through enough rises and falls to understand that false stability may feel safe, but it doesn't feed the soul. This moment carries a deeply human reminder. Life doesn't ask you to be perfect. It asks you to be fully present with your choices. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's moving forward while your heart is still trembling. And every decision you make today doesn't just shape an outcome, it shapes how you will see yourself for years to come. If you feel your heartbeat slow as you hear these words, that isn't random. It's resonance, a quiet alignment between you and what's waiting ahead. No one else can make this decision for you, but no one else, besides you, deserves to live a life aligned with their inner light. And as you begin to accept that you're standing before a very special door, you'll notice fear no longer sits at the center. In its place comes curiosity, a small but steady thread of hope, a feeling that even if the road ahead isn't fully clear, at least you're no longer walking in unconscious darkness. Some journeys don't begin with a step. They begin with permission. Permission to believe you deserve something better. Permission to let life guide you in a new way. And in that moment of permission, other doors begin to open as well, softly, naturally, as if they've been waiting for you for a very long time. And when that door begins to open, the first thing you notice isn't a number. It isn't money appearing in front of you. It's a strange feeling, a quiet one. The feeling that things are starting to matter again. Your effort, your sleepless nights, the times you kept going in silence. Suddenly, none of it feels wasted anymore. There's a subtle movement happening beneath the surface, like underground water flowing below the earth, slow, steady, patiently finding its way toward the light. You may have believed your opportunity had to come from one very specific place. A job you've been pursuing for a long time. A project you placed all your hopes on. A person you thought would be the key to financial security. But life is often more delicate than our expectations. It doesn't follow our checklist. It doesn't arrive where we're staring the hardest. It comes from corners we once overlooked. An old idea you set aside because it didn't feel ready. A relationship you underestimated because the value wasn't obvious. A path completely different from your original plan. So different that at first, you even doubted yourself. Sagittarius, this surprise isn't meant to test you. It's meant to free you. Because if everything arrived exactly where you expected, exactly how you predicted, you would only repeat the same circle. This time, a new current is inviting you to step outside the familiar pattern, to see your own value through a wider lens, no longer limited by what once felt safe. But there is one truth that needs to be spoken with complete honesty. The greatest obstacle has never been external circumstances. It lives in memory, in the years when scarcity shaped your thinking, in the seasons when you counted every expense, when you wondered if you had enough, in the moments when the world felt harsh and you learned to shrink yourself just to survive. Those memories are not wrong. They kept you alive. But if you carry them unchanged into the present, they quietly blur the opportunities opening right now. You may hesitate when an offer appears, simply because risk feels dangerous. You may pause before a new idea because it feels unfamiliar, too different. You may even wonder why others believe in you more than you believe in yourself. Pause here. Ask yourself honestly, does this fear belong to the present, or is it only an echo from a past that has already passed? When you begin to see money and material value not through defense, but through cooperation, something shifts. Not loudly, not dramatically. Life starts to flow more smoothly. Conversations that seem random carry quiet clues. Small opportunities connect into something larger, and you realize that prosperity isn't something to fight for. It arrives when you stop blocking it. There's a deeply human beauty in this moment. You understand that you don't need to become someone else to be worthy of abundance. You only need to be yourself with a more open heart and the belief that sincere effort always finds its way back. When you release the fear of not having enough, you make room for fullness to enter. Not just money, but the feeling of being supported, being trusted, being seen for your true value. And within that openness, you begin to stand more firmly on your own feet. No more gripping tightly, no more constant defense. Just moving forward with a new sense of calm, knowing this current is carrying you somewhere wider, brighter. A place where you don't need to prove your worth, because that worth has always been there, quietly waiting for you to recognize it again. And as that sense of calm slowly settles in your chest, something else begins to come into focus. What you do each day, the way you think, the way you look toward the road ahead. All of it is being drawn into a very specific rhythm. It's as if time is no longer moving evenly, but gently compressing, gathering its energy into a shorter window, just enough to test your ability to decide. You may have noticed this through very ordinary signs. A conversation that seemed casual, yet stayed with you long after it ended. An email, a message, an idea that arrived without being chased. None of these moments are loud, none of them look like a dramatic turning point, but they share one thing in common. They ask for a response, not a reaction driven by impulse, but your full presence, right here, right now. Sagittarius is someone who sees far ahead. You like to weigh things carefully, to place every decision inside a larger picture before you move. That's a beautiful trait. But there are moments when life doesn't wait for you to finish drawing the entire map. It asks one simple question: are you willing to step forward when the door opens? And this door, whether it feels familiar or completely new, is tied to how you express your mind, your voice, your vision. It might be an offer that makes you hesitate because of its speed. It might be a project that excites you and unsettles you at the same time because it's unlike anything you've done before. Or it could be an opportunity that asks you to speak more clearly, more decisively, instead of keeping your thoughts safely tucked away. Whatever form it takes, the feeling is the same. Time is narrowing, as if the universe is leaning in, waiting to see whether you will stay silent or speak. If you hesitate too long, it isn't because you lack ability. It's simply because this current will continue moving, and it will align with someone ready to move with it. There is no punishment here, only the natural motion of opportunity. But if you allow yourself to respond, even without seeing the entire outcome, you'll notice something shift. Recognition doesn't come only from the outside. It rises from within, the moment you step into a role you've always known you were capable of holding. There's a quiet pride in that choice. Not the kind that needs to be seen, but the kind you feel in your posture, standing a little straighter, speaking with more clarity, trusting the value of what you carry. Others may begin to see you differently, not because you've changed who you are, but because you've stopped hiding your light. And within that movement, you realize that position isn't something you fight for. It forms naturally when you stand where you belong, when you say yes to what makes you grow, more responsible, more honest with your own ambition. Other doors begin to respond, not in a rush, but with certainty, like a quiet confirmation that you are moving in rhythm with your life. What matters most may not be what you gain in the next few days. It's who you become by choosing. A Sagittarius who no longer stands on the sidelines, no longer asking, should I or shouldn't I, but stepping into the current with the clarity and courage that have always been there. And when you find yourself there, in the movement of work, of voice, of an expanding vision, you'll feel a familiar energy return, as if you've stepped back into your rightful place within a larger design, where everything begins to align in a way that feels natural, alive, and unmistakably true. And as your rhythm of life slowly settles into that balance, another emotional current begins to rise quietly, not loudly, not suddenly, more like a warm lamp turning on in a room at dusk. You don't turn it on to see someone else more clearly. You turn it on so you're no longer sitting in the dark yourself. And in that softened space, you begin to sense the presence of someone, not through clear images, but through feeling, a familiar feeling, even if you haven't named it in a long time. Someone has been thinking about you deeply, not in a fleeting, impulsive way, not a memory that comes and goes. This is a steady kind of attention, quiet, enduring, stretched across time. You may not know it consciously, or maybe you sensed it once and chose to set it aside. Moments when an image suddenly returns, an old sentence echoes in your mind for no reason, a very small instant when your heart slows by one beat. None of that is accidental. These are traces of a connection that was never fully closed. This person may have passed through your life in another chapter, when neither of you was ready, when you didn't yet understand yourselves, let alone each other. Or they may be right there in your present life, close enough, but you've been used to seeing them through logic, through habit, through old labels, so much so that you never truly looked with your heart. And only now, as you stand more firmly within yourself, as you stop rushing to prove or to escape, does this connection finally have room to appear? What matters here isn't surface romance, it's something rarer, balance. With this person, you don't feel the need to tense up, and you don't feel the need to shrink. There's no exhausting chase, no heavy silence filled with anxiety, just the feeling of being yourself and allowing the other person to be the same. This is a deeply healing energy. It doesn't come to burn, it comes to warm. But Sagittarius, precisely because of that softness, this is where awareness matters most. Your heart is wide, sincere, and quick to trust. You often see the best in people, sometimes more clearly than they see it in themselves. This time, growth doesn't mean closing your heart. It means opening it with discernment. Let emotion be present, but don't let it walk alone. Some truths can only be read through action, through how someone shows up when you need them, through consistency, not promises, through small details repeated long enough to build trust. If you find yourself constantly explaining something away inside, pause. Listen. Your intuition has been sharpened by real experience. It is no longer naive. True healing doesn't erase what once hurt. It removes the fear of it. A connection that is right will never ask you to abandon yourself. It will never force you to choose between love and freedom. It gives you space to breathe, to grow, to continue your journey without losing anyone, including yourself. And if this person truly enters your life with that energy, you will feel peace clearly, as if your heart has finally been set down in a place that is safe. You don't need to name this relationship right away. No labels, no immediate decisions. Just allow it to exist, slowly, honestly. Let time guide it, not fear, not expectation. Because sometimes the most beautiful part of love isn't how it begins, but how two people learn to be together without harming themselves. And as you move within this emotional current, open-hearted yet grounded, you will realize something very deep. When love arrives at the right moment, it doesn't pull you off your path. It makes the road ahead brighter, warmer, and strong enough for you to keep moving forward with a heart that is no longer lonely, yet never loses the freedom that has always been the soul of who you are. And within that freedom, when you are no longer held by unnamed emotions, another layer of life begins to gently stir. Not with loud noise, but with a feeling that is deeply familiar. The feeling that something has never been fully said, never fully placed where it belongs, like a puzzle piece slightly out of alignment in a picture that once looked complete. You've lived with this feeling long enough to believe it was normal. But in truth, it's a sign that a truth is drawing closer. Some information never disappears. It doesn't vanish. It simply becomes quiet. It lives in unfinished sentences, in avoided eye contact, in moments when you sense you were never told the whole story. The one holding that truth is not necessarily a bad person. Sometimes it's someone afraid of hurting you. Sometimes it's someone without the courage to face your reaction. And sometimes it's you, choosing not to ask more, not to look deeper, because surface calm felt good enough. Sagittarius, long silence is no longer protection. It becomes an invisible weight, a weight that forces you to guess, to fill in the blanks, to carry assumptions that were never fair to you. And when the truth begins to reveal itself, what matters most is not what the truth contains, but how you receive it. Truth does not arrive to break you. It arrives to return something to you. Your right to know, your right to understand, your right to stand on solid ground. This moment may not feel comfortable. Your chest may tighten for a second. But remember this: light never hurts unless we've lived in darkness for too long. As things become clearer, you begin to feel lighter. Lighter because you no longer carry unanswered questions. Lighter because you stop blaming yourself for things that were never truly in your control. How you meet the truth now is everything. If you meet it with anger, it becomes a wound. If you meet it with fear, it becomes a chain. But if you meet it with the maturity you've earned through years of living, it becomes a key to inner release. Release from old cycles, release from living in emotional uncertainty with yourself. There is a deep human value in this moment. The right to face truth without losing compassion, compassion for others, and compassion for yourself. You don't need to judge anyone right away. You don't need to make sudden decisions. You only need to allow truth to exist fully. When you stop resisting it, it naturally loses its weight. You begin to realize you are far stronger than you once believed. That some things once caused anxiety, but never had the power to destroy you. That clarity, even when it arrives late, is always better than prolonged uncertainty. And that clarity allows you to reset boundaries, realign direction, and move forward with open eyes instead of closing them out of fear. As the final pieces find their proper place, you enter a different kind of quiet. Not the quiet of avoidance, but the quiet of understanding. In that quiet, your breath deepens, your view of your journey softens, and in that same stillness, you begin to hear your inner voice more clearly. The voice that has guided you silently through every long stretch of the road. You may find you don't need to say much about what you now understand. You don't need to prove who was right or wrong. Maturity often means choosing peace over winning. And when you choose peace, you choose a future no longer bound by unspoken things. A future where you walk lighter, with a heart that has had a layer of fog gently lifted. And when truth is no longer a burden, space opens up. Space to care for yourself. Space to listen to your body. Space to notice subtle signals you once missed because your mind was too busy carrying unanswered questions. The current slows now, it deepens. And in that slower rhythm, you begin to hear something being whispered, that it's time to return to yourself more often, to listen more closely to your inner pulse, because your body and your mind are asking for genuine care. Not later, not someday, but now. Some signals never shout, they whisper, they tap gently, they repeat themselves patiently, waiting for you to turn back and listen. Sagittarius has traveled far, carrying responsibility, expectations, promises made to the world and to yourself. You're used to enduring, used to pushing through, used to saying you're fine, even when something inside is already tired. But the body doesn't speak the language of willpower. It speaks through shallower breaths at the end of the day, through restless sleep, through a mind that struggles to focus, even when you're trying your hardest. That isn't weakness. It's the body's natural intelligence trying to protect you. You may have overlooked the smallest signs, a brief ache that comes and goes, a morning when your energy doesn't quite follow you out of bed, tension in your shoulders, your neck, your back, as if you've been carrying things that were never meant to be yours. Your nervous system has been working overtime. It needs to cool down, not through complicated solutions, but through simple, basic kindness. If you keep running without stopping, life will eventually stop you. Not as punishment, but as rescue. The moments when we're forced to rest, forced to slow down, usually arrive when we no longer have a choice. But this time, you still do. You have the choice to place yourself first, just a little. The choice to say no to commitments that drain your energy. The choice to create small pockets of space, enough for your body to remember its natural rhythm again. The good news is this: your ability to recover is strong. You are not depleted. You simply need to recharge in the right way. Going to sleep a little earlier, not out of discipline, but out of self-respect. Letting your mind rest without needing to stay sharp all the time. Returning to simple things that once nourished you. A warm cup of water, a quiet walk, an afternoon without a schedule. These small acts, when repeated with sincerity, begin to repair what prolonged tension has worn down. There's a common misunderstanding that self-care is selfish. It isn't. It's responsibility. Responsibility toward the body that has carried you through every season. Responsibility toward the mind that has held so many decisions. When you are healthier, more centered, you don't just live better for yourself. You live better for those you love, for the work you commit to, for the values you want to offer the world. Listen to your fatigue as you would a truthful friend. It isn't asking you to change your entire life overnight. It's only asking for your attention. Attention to your breath when stress begins to rise. Attention to the sensation in your body when you say yes, while your heart wants to say no. Attention to the moment you need to pause, even if it's only for a few minutes. In that attention, healing begins. You'll notice that as your energy returns, everything else becomes clearer. Thoughts feel less tangled, emotions feel less extreme, decisions feel lighter, and you realize something quietly beautiful. Strength isn't only found in moving forward, it's also found in knowing when to care for the roots so the tree can keep growing taller. A new kind of quiet forms when you choose to treat yourself with kindness. Not the quiet of avoidance, but the quiet of balance. In that space, you hear your inner voice more clearly. You feel more deeply what truly nourishes you. And when you rise from that rest, you don't just continue the journey. You return to it with a different vitality, more grounded, more luminous. The current now carries a deeply human reminder. Life does not measure your worth by how exhausted you become. It responds to your full presence. And when you allow yourself to recover, you open the door to receiving the rewards that come from balance. A new rhythm of living is beginning to emerge, one where health is no longer postponed, but becomes the foundation for everything good that continues to find its way to you. And as you stand more firmly on that foundation, a familiar movement begins to return, not from what's ahead of you, but from behind, from a place where memories once rested quietly for a long time. A meeting is being arranged in a way the mind can't fully explain. No noise, no warning, just a sense that someone is about to step back into your energetic space, carrying the breath of an earlier time, but no longer carrying its old weight. This person may appear unexpectedly, through a message, a phone call, or a moment so ordinary you almost miss its significance. And when it happens, you'll notice something important. Your heart doesn't react the way it once did. There are no crashing waves, no emotional storm, only a quiet pause, long enough for you to look at everything through different eyes, more mature, lighter, more honest. This meeting doesn't come to pull you back to a place that once hurt you. It comes to complete what was left unfinished. Words that were never spoken, misunderstandings that were never named, apologies, gratitude, or simply the recognition that both of you did. the best you could with the awareness you had at the time. No one was entirely wrong, just not ready yet. Sagittarius, some connections don't need to continue in order to heal. They only need to be seen clearly, placed in their rightful spot in memory, and gently released. You don't need to return to prove anything. You don't need to play the role of someone strong and untouched. You only need to be honest about what once existed, and honest about who you are now. Forgiveness in this moment isn't about erasing the past. It's about freeing energy that's been stuck for far too long. It's about giving yourself emotional freedom back. When resentment, regret, and unanswered questions are no longer carried with you, space opens up for the present to be lived more fully. And the other person, whether they've changed or not, no longer has the power to control your emotional world. This meeting may be brief. It may be just a few words, a few minutes of silence, or even a quiet realization within you that everything is complete. And that sense of enough is the greatest gift of all. It closes a cycle that has consumed so much of your energy. And when a cycle closes the right way, the lightness is unmistakable, as if a door behind you softly shuts, without echo. What's beautiful is that you don't have to do this alone. You already carry enough experience, enough depth, enough compassion to move through this moment with kindness on both sides. You understand now that everyone is learning their own lesson, and your lesson right here is knowing when to hold and when to let go, so your heart stays free without becoming closed. When the old chapter closes like this, you feel it in your steps, lighter, unpulled by the past, no longer afraid it will repeat itself. In its place comes a quiet trust, a knowing that you've come far enough to never lose yourself in old paths again. And in that trust, a new chapter opens. No forcing, no rushing. There's a subtle feeling that arises when you step away from connections that have fulfilled their purpose. A readiness for new connections, not because something is missing, but because you are more whole. Whole in how you love, how you give, how you protect yourself. And standing there, you realize that every meeting, long or brief, has guided you exactly where you needed to be. The current continues to carry you forward, without heaviness, only with wisdom distilled from all that has passed. And within that wisdom, you feel it clearly. You are ready for a new journey, one where nothing has to struggle to survive, but is allowed to grow, naturally, gently, and full of hope. And when you reach that point, everything suddenly becomes clear in a very calm way. The next 3 months no longer feel vague or uncertain. They move with rhythm, with order, with meaning. The first stretch brings necessary revelations, choices you can no longer avoid, like light, finally, reaching places that were once dim. Then comes the feeling of a true departure. No more testing, no more hesitation, just moving forward with the quiet confidence that you are exactly where you're meant to be. And later, when you look back, what you planted with awareness and courage begins to bear fruit. Real, earned, deserved. Some people may not understand your change. There may be doubtful looks, whispers, an uncomfortable silence from those who were attached to an older version of you, but your light does not need permission to exist. It only needs your consent. When you stand firmly in your choices, you are not fighting anyone. You are simply being honest with your own path. And that honesty is something no one can take away from you. Remember this. You are not being pulled by fate. You are holding the wheel, every day, with every small decision. You don't need to see the entire journey in advance. You only need enough clarity to choose the direction that aligns with your deepest values. When you live this way, life is no longer something that happens to you. It becomes something you actively create. And if these words resonate with you, if you feel yourself stepping into a brighter chapter, stay here with this channel. Subscribe, so whenever you need a pause, a reminder, a quiet place to return to, you know there is always space for you here. Thank you for listening. And may you continue forward with the freedom, the strength, and the quiet confidence that belong to you as a true Sagittarius.